Next one, Siebel tools. Siebel tools is the Siebel development environment, right? In this, when you say that, like, basically the developers use Siebel tools to develop. You will never be using Siebel tools. You're not supposed to know what is there in Siebel tools, how to access the definitions of the objects, all the screens, views, applets, business components, each and every field, and each and every field's properties are objects in Siebel tools. They access this and then they modify the properties of the objects. Okay, this is Siebel tools. This is how it look like. For example, the applets that you see in the GUI, they are basically here. All these mentioned here. They access those applets. They look at the controls of the applets, things like that. Okay, they look at all the columns they are mentioned here. They do basically they can see all these things here, and then they can they can modify the properties of the applets. Okay, for example, this is account contact list applet. Fax number of, these are all columns which you see in the list, right? These are all mentioned here. And the point is, you will not be utilizing it, but you should know what is Siebel tools. If you have never heard Siebel tools, how can you be a person working in Siebel? The whole idea of these keywords is that, right? This is Siebel tools. This is what the developers use day in and day out. They come in the morning, they don't open Siebel. You also don't open Siebel, but they do open some Siebel tools and they start working on it. They look at the requirement, they code here. Look at the requirement in the document, then they code here. That's what they do. Then they compile it. Then they create a new SRF. Then they do unit testing right here. They can do a dry run of what they create. Dry run means they don't put it on the server. They just do a local check. They take a backup of the functionality that they create. It is the tools is a development environment. That's where everybody they develop it. Okay, the developers develop it. You might have to access Siebel tools sometimes as a BA to observe the definitions of the objects which are present out of the box. Sometimes looking in the GUI may not make you understand what the rules are behind the scenes. In that case, you would need to access Siebel tools and do it. If you were to do that, we will teach that thing to you separately. As always, you don't need to worry about it, just like that. So there are some projects where the PMs or the tech leads expect you to understand the the OOB out of the box object definitions, and in that case you're supposed to look here to ensure that you're doing the right thing. Okay, we'll teach you how to. There is a separate video for that, right? नहीं, अगला उसके पहले इंजन है, ये वाला इंजन प्रिवेंटिव, मैं गलत स्पेलिंग लिखे, प्रिवेंटिव इंजन, प्रिवेंटिव मेंटेनेंस इंजन। सीबल में ना कई बड़े इंटरेस्टिंग वर्कफ्लोज बने बनाए मिलते हैं। फॉर एग्जांपल ऑर्डर मैनेजमेंट के लिए उन्होंने कुछ ना कुछ बना रखा है, जैसे पार्ट लोकेटर के लिए बना रखा है, वो उनको इंजन्स बोल देते हैं कभी कभी। तो इंजन्स आर नथिंग but there is thing called as basic simple workflows, or जिसमें थोड़ी which is limited functionality. When something requires a very big functionality, Siebel, then you need write complex workflows. Siebel out of the box gives some very complex workflows. For example, जैसे I told you, when you submit a request for a part, you have to price it also for the customer, right? It will go and check this, that, and then come back. Siebel out of the box provides it. Okay, developers know how to tweak it. These are called as part locator engine. Part may not be, part locator engine itself is very interesting. You enter the asset, you say, I need this, but how, I don't know what are the complexities here. I don't want to get into the process level discussion, but basically there will be multiple engines. In field service, there are multiple engines available. When you go and look at the guide, you should go over the engines. Do not get into the technicalities, that's your genius. Do differentiate between functionality and technicalities, and look at just the functionality and say, okay, now I understand what this engine does. How? Not your thing. What? Yes, what it does. Okay, it basically brings, when customer puts a request, it brings and gets the right part for this thing. Okay. Similarly, I can tell you on preventive maintenance engine. What is this engine? This engine, when an asset is sold, it creates service requests for that asset in right away. There is no service request pending, right? For the preventive maintenance, for example, let's say a car is sold, right? We know that there is a 3,000 mile service, there's a 7,000, 20,000 mile service, 90,000 mile service, 80,000. It automatically creates service requests and reminders. Okay, it creates all these things for the asset just as it is created. So preventive maintenance engine is a very important thing that is utilized in all the clients, in all the companies, wherever they are selling heavy industrial goods. Preventive maintenance is a very important thing that they sell along with it or give free for some time, right? That is PM. I was very surprised very recently. One of my friends has a car. His car door was open, and I realized, you know, in the industry also they call it PM, preventive maintenance schedule. If you go to any auto mechanic shop, you can talk to them about the preventive maintenance schedule. I did not know that the industry also calls it. Now I realized very recently that they also call it. So preventive maintenance is an industry wide keyword, and preventive maintenance engines, they basically automatically create service requests for a certain asset just as it is sold, for future service requests, free or not free, that is different. It will check all that and basically put all this information also. Users do not. This is your greatness. For example, if you are going to a, let's say, field service project, I can tell you something. There are 200. Let's see how many pages are there in this guide. This is the SeaWorld Field Service Guide. There are 540 pages. Out of these, some tell you preventive maintenance triggers. See, let me talk. About 50 pages is what you need to study properly, and they are all English, not technical, and business, not technical. They are not technical, but you must study. For example, preventive maintenance. Okay, we understand it like from a business process standpoint, from our idea standpoint, but what is it from a process also we understand, but what is from a functional standpoint? The way we implemented it is in case of Y diagrams, just as the asset is sold, the order is submitted and the asset is created, right away there is a trigger. So it has to be set up by the developer. The triggers, you have to tell him what will be the trigger. Trigger will be when the asset record is created. For what all kind of products, you can give him a set of criteria. He will implement it using PM engine, but you should know that these are the criteria that the PM engine can look at. On the basis of that criteria, he will create service request. You will give the requirement for every product, what kind of service request. Of course, let's say in case of Honda, let's say you are working for Toyota. In case of Toyota Camry SE TT2, the model, SC model, you want to create 5 service requests, one for 3,000, one for 7,000, one for 20,000, one for 11,000, whatever. And 3,000, 5,000, one is free. After that, it is not free. Whereas for Toyota Camry SC LE model, whatever, you want to create 4 service requests, 30,000 miles, 60,000 miles, 90,000 miles. This requirement will be gathered by you and be set up in the engine, and will be set up in the engine by Mr. Developer, but you will give this requirement to him. You see, so the point is, you should know functional standpoint, from a functional standpoint, what all it entails, what all it means. It means a trigger, service request, the duration for every product, blah blah blah, the set of conditions, right? All these things, and then whether they create an alarm for the customer, whether they create an alarm for the rep, whether they create who will be alarmed when that request comes. All these information will be given by you. If you are working in PM engine, this will be a 3 to 4 months project just on PM engine. Just on PM engine. PM engine is a very complex kind of requirement. Okay. So let's say we want to implement a very interesting requirement is given here by one of the students. He says that let's say there is an oil change and we want to create a let's say have a functionality that there should be a reminder after 3 months that there is an oil change. So let's expand this requirement and understand how preventive engine will work in this case. First of all, this is not an asset. So the question is whether sale of an order can trigger. Yes, एक्चुअली नहीं कर सकता, मुझे पता है, बट अभी बात करते हैं, ठीक है। द रिक्वायरमेंट विल बी इम्प्लीमेंटेड लाइक दिस व्हेन द प्रोडक्ट इज सोल्ड. Remember, the trigger is not asset related this time. Just the product is sold. At that point, the preventive maintenance should get triggered. When the product of type oil change is sold, the preventive maintenance engine will get triggered and it will create another service request after 3 months. But there are multiple things. Who will get reminded? The rep. If rep gets reminded, how will he call the customer if he doesn't have his information? There is no use of this thing. Typically, this kind of a thing, in this kind of a small thing, this thing, they would like an automatic email to be sent to the customer. So where will the customer email come from? Customer email ID will come from the oil change. When you are doing the oil change, rep can ask him. So I think the way it should be implemented is rep should ask the customer, hey, do you want a reminder? I can send you an email. If he says yes, he will fill out the email ID field at the oil change product level in the order line items. For example, in this case here, right here in the order line items, this is screen, this is orders screen, this is sales order, there is a line item. In this view, when he enters a line item and the product is oil change, right there you will provide a field, email ID. Rep will enter that email ID field. Right then the PM engine will get triggered. It will first check whether the email ID is present. If email ID is not present, it will not do anything. If email ID is present and the product is equal to oil change, it will create a service request with right here automatically it will create a service request in all service request in which all these details will be mentioned. What is the customer name, last name, first name. It will pick from the order level and it will enter all this information, as well as it will create an activity of type reminder of type email with the email ID of the customer and an email template which will be basically, which must have been set up by someone else before, which you guys will be taking the requirements for again. And it will be mentioned in that dear Mr. Customer, dear last name, first name, you came to our station on this date for a service request. Today we want to remind you that your oil change might be due. If you would want, this is just a friendly reminder as you requested. Thank you, blah blah blah. Thank you, Auto Parts Limited, Auto Oil Change Limited, or thank you, Quick Auto Change Oil Change Limited, whatever the name of your organization is. Number ऐसे करके you will be gathering the requirement for template for this reminder. 3 month भी आपको वो बताएंगे. Users will tell they want to be sent the reminder after 3 months. You think 3 months or 2 months, 2 months and 20 days should be, the reminder should be sent after that. They will tell you all these things. I think 2 months, 20 days is better, but that's from process level. They will tell you what they want and you will basically create the system like that. This is how the preventive maintenance engine will work. But okay, having told you about preventive maintenance engine, I know two or three things about preventive maintenance. One is it can be triggered only by the agreement and by asset. Something I remember, it can be integrated only with agreement and with asset. I don't remember the entire thing. You have to study that, but I'm telling you it may not be integrable with order and line item. That's what I'm trying to say. Check it out. Right? I told you the concept of integration. Rest is in bookshelf. You go there and check it. If you are working in PM engine, you go through that chapter that I showed you in field service guide. You cannot make too many mistakes. If you understand all these things, you will understand it very fast. If you don't understand, I'm here. Okay. So remember, we are going over the keywords. Our idea is not to understand everything in its glory. Our idea is to understand every keyword little by little.